How is everybody doing? Welcome back to another live stream. We have a lot to get into in today's live stream. I'm going to be going over the entire crypto market, providing everyone with an update as to where I see this market going in the next few days and weeks. We're going to discuss the deadline that Trump has imposed on Iran to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Yesterday, he gave them a 48-hour deadline to open up the Strait of Hormuz fully. Otherwise, he is going to go after the power plants. Now, there's 24 hours left, just less than 24 hours left, actually, as of right now. And we're going to discuss the potential implications of that on the market. We'll look at Bitcoin. We'll look at the weekly close. We'll look at some of the altcoins I'm very bullish on. So we really do have quite a lot to get into today on this specific live stream. So all I ask from you guys is that you smash up the likes on the live stream. Let's try and get as many likes on the stream as possible. Really does help out a ton with the channel. Also, check out Blowfin. There is a link down below to the exchange that I personally use in cryptocurrency. This is the exchange I use to buy crypto. It's the exchange I use to trade crypto. And there is a potential Rolex which you could win depending on your trading volume. So check it out. Make sure you use my link down below. We really do have a ton of things to get into today. We will start by discussing Bitcoin. Just let me know in the chat as well. If you have hit a like on the live stream, please let me know in the chat and I'll make sure to give you a shout out. But let's get into it. So Bitcoin on the weekly, very red week. And you can see that, you know, this is very much a region of chop that Bitcoin is in. Bitcoin is very much in a region of chop, indecision, and it doesn't really know where it's going here, whether it's going to make a move to the upside, potentially up to 80K or higher, or whether it's going to make a move to another low and maybe retest the 200-week moving average. So we're still stuck between the two moving averages. We haven't officially hit the 200-week yet. I still think there's a chance that we could hit the 200-week. It wouldn't be crazy to me if Bitcoin comes down slightly lower than it's already gone. In my opinion, it would actually be bullish if Bitcoin was to do that, because most likely it would create a bullish divergence and we would probably have more of a sustained longer term rally if we get that bullish divergence, compared to if this was the bottom here and it was simply a wick and we didn't get that bullish div. Now, the real big stuff is happening on the smaller time frames. I think it's very important that we look at the 4-hour on Bitcoin right now, because there's a lot of different ways people are charting this, but it's very clear that Bitcoin is in some sort of ascending range. You could say channel, you could say wedge. It really depends how you personally chart it. I'm seeing a lot of people draw a trend line using this orange line I've just drawn out here, which looks more like a wedge. And then I'm seeing people also draw more of a channel. But either way, it's very evident that Bitcoin is in a range. If you're looking at the orange line as your support, we have just lost that. If you're looking at the black line as your support, we still have that to be used as support, which is currently sat around $66,000. Now, $66,000 is a major level in terms of the 4-hour chart, in terms of the short term. The reason it's a major level is because of this massive support line that I just told you about, but also you have the value area low on the volume profile. Now, I haven't been a major volume profile trader in the past, but I cannot deny this year Bitcoin has been following those volume profiles like I've never seen it follow them before. It has been extremely accurate as a way in predicting the support and resistance for Bitcoin. And as of right now, it's finding support at the point of control, which is the middle of the volume, right? But we have the value area low down here at 66,400, you know, give or take a little bit. So 66,000, that region is going to be major support. Now, I'm not talking about 66,000 exactly on the dot, but just that region around 66,000 is going to act as major support, because not only is it this massive support trend line, not only is it the value area low, but it is also the golden pocket on Bitcoin. Well, to be specific, it's 65,900 is the golden pocket, is the 618 fib. But again, it's all pointing to around that 66K region as support. Now, if Bitcoin ends up losing 66K on a close, it's going to get very bad, in my opinion, and we will see another low on Bitcoin, or at least we will sweep the wick around 59K. We'll come back down to that wick. Now, I've said before, and I'll say it again, it is not a bad thing if Bitcoin loses this range and does end up going into the mid 50,000 region. It is not a bad thing. I want to make that very, very clear in people's minds. In fact, I would say it is a bullish thing, because we will create a bullish divergence that will most likely mark the bottom, and we will then go up for a considerable period of time, many, many months, or maybe even multiple years we could go up for after that. So yes, this type of structure in a bear market does lead to a breakdown, but I would believe that that breakdown would most likely mark the bottom, okay? I've been saying, like a broken record on this channel, that the bottom is either in or close to being in. Close to being in means we could go down to 55K. When Bitcoin goes to 200K, 300K, you're not going to be beating yourself up saying, oh, I wish I would have bought at 55. I ended up buying at 59. You're not going to say that. Let's be real. You're not going to be bothered whether you bought at 55K or 59K. But you will be bothered if you miss both of those. That's when you'll be very bothered, because you'll be chasing the green candles. So it's very important that you buy the bottoming range and you don't try and time the exact second of the bottom. Because I can assure you, if you're trying that perfectionist route, you will be disappointed, you will be wrecked, and you will be chasing green candles. Last bull run, I'm going to use myself as an example here. Or last bear market, rather. Last bear market, my bottoming range that I outlined on Bitcoin was between $17,000 and $13,000. I said consistently on my YouTube channel, which I still had back then, by the way. That's when I started my YouTube channel, was last bear market. I said consistently on my YouTube channel that I'm beginning to buy Bitcoin at 17K. But if it goes down to 13, I'll still have some dry powder to deploy into Bitcoin. But the majority of my buying will be at 17K, 16K, 15K. If it goes a little bit lower, fine, I'll just stack even more. So my bottoming range on Bitcoin last bear market was 13 to 17K. As a result, I ended up with an average on Bitcoin last bull run of 15,900. That was my average. Basically 16K was my average. This time around, my personal bottoming range that I am targeting is between 60K down to 53K, that kind of region, okay? In and around the 200 weekly moving average, the level which I've been talking about every single week on my channel since we lost the 50 week. And I've been preparing you guys for a hit of the 200 week. We sold our portfolios high, we started buying back in low. Now, I've said many times, we could end up going even lower. We could see a disastrous bear market. We could see $40,000 Bitcoin, but it's not my base case, and that is the important thing. It's possible, but in my estimation, it is not probable. And there's a plethora of reasons as to why that's the case. I could speak to you all day about that. All right. But in my viewpoint, for Bitcoin to lose $50,000 and to end up in the 40s or the 30s, you require a major black swan event. It could be a whole host of different things. Could be a new pandemic. Could be a nuclear weapon getting detonated. Could be Binance or Coinbase going bust. It could be a major stablecoin imploding. There's a plethora of different things that it could be. But it's a black swan event. You can't predict those. You can't necessarily expect those. They come out of nowhere. They come out of the blue. So it's certainly possible we could go very low, but it's not my base case. And for that reason, I'm deploying the vast majority of my capital in the low 60,000 region and the high 50,000 region. That's where I'm deploying most of my capital. I already bought 90% of my stablecoins into the market between 59K and 64K. That's where I deployed all my stables. I've still got 10% left. I have got some money in the bank that I can add to that 10% position. And I do have the ability that if we go very deep down, I could start borrowing against some of my assets, some of my property. But honestly, from me to you, I don't think we're going that low. I think the 200-week moving average will more or less hold up. Could we go slightly below it? Yes. But we literally just had the beginning of a whole new war, and that didn't even dump Bitcoin below the 200-week moving average. That could have arguably have been a black swan event, but it wasn't. So it needs to take something massive to drop Bitcoin into the 40s, and I just don't see it happening. But that's the whole point of a black swan, right? You don't see it happening until it happens. So you've always got to have it in the back of your mind, but not necessarily hold 100% stable coins because a black swan might happen, right? That's not the strategy. We make our strategies based off probabilities, or at least I do. So that is my analysis on Bitcoin. It does seem to me like we're probably going to get a move down to 66K. There's a lot of confluence there, value area low, golden pocket, support, trend line. There's a lot pointing to that level. If that level doesn't hold and we don't get a bounce from there and the buyers don't step in, then we will end up going to a new low, in my opinion, on Bitcoin. Just on a probabilities level, if 66K doesn't hold, 55 is probably next. All right. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Bitcoin. You can see that we are bleeding out a little bit here. And for those of you who don't know, the main reason we're dumping so much, especially in the last 24 hours, is all down to the news from Trump, the post that Trump made, where he essentially said that Iran needs to open up the Strait of Hormuz. He gave a deadline of 48 hours. We're already more than 24 hours into that deadline, I believe now, or around 24 hours left, I think. I mean, what time did he post it? What was the exact time he posted it? Guys, let me know how long's left on the deadline. How many hours is left on the deadline? Someone just confirm it in the chat. But this was last night, and I was literally about to go to sleep. I was in bed, about to go to sleep. I check, I'll be honest, I check my phone before I go to sleep. I check the charts, check my portfolio. I know it's bad to do, and I don't recommend it to people. It's a problem. But yeah, I don't recommend it to people. It is certainly not healthy to do. But I checked my phone before I went to sleep, and all of a sudden, the red candles were coming in. And I was like, this has to be related to the war. This has to be a news event. There's no way we would dump like this without it being somewhat related to the war or some sort of news event. So I checked, and then it obviously was this post from Trump. And he's threatening that he's going to target the power plants. Now, Iran came out after this and said, if you target our power plants, we will fully close the Strait of Hormuz. Not a single ship will go past. And yeah, we're not going to close it, basically, they said. So Iran aren't giving in. I said that it's not in their nature to surrender. I told you guys that many times. Trump said he needs an unconditional surrender from Iran. I've said many times, it's extremely unlikely that they do that. But the interesting thing is the constant changing narrative. First, it was, we need Western allies to step in and open up the Strait of Hormuz. We need Britain, we need France, we need the EU, we need NATO to come in and help open it up with their navies. Then it was, we don't need them. We don't need the UK. We don't need NATO. We'll do it ourselves. And now it's Iran, you've got 48 hours to open it up. So I think Trump has realized that it's actually easier said than done to open up the Strait of Hormuz. They're not going to be able to do it without suffering huge casualties if they try and do it themselves. And it will be probably very politically suicidal for the midterms. So they've basically resorted to some sort of ultimatum. Kind of reminds me of back in the tariff days. Remember that back around April 2025 when Trump would give these kind of deadlines and these ultimatums to China. And more often than not, he would just back out. He would back down. And that's where the whole saying, Trump always chickens out, that taco phrase that was very prominent during April of last year, that's where that came from. That originated from the whole tariff situation and the fact that Trump would often say things and then back down and backtrack. So what do you guys think? I'm genuinely curious. What do you think about this Iran ultimatum that Trump has essentially made? Because, you know, time's ticking. Are they going to just start hitting the power plants? Because if Trump doesn't do that, if he doesn't end up hitting the power plants and he doesn't stick to his word, then he comes across as very weak. It looks weak on America's behalf. And there's one thing you don't want to do in a war, and that's look weak. You don't want to demonstrate any degree of weakness. You want to demonstrate pure boldness, strength, and you know, a destructive ability. And if Trump ends up backtracking on this, backpedaling, and not sticking to his word, then it does look tremendously weak on the American part. And yeah, it also just it just makes it all look like a mess. You know, it really does. So, what do you guys think? I'm gonna go through the chat here, see what everyone's saying. Trump will not do it. So if he does end up doing it, this is going to only spike oil up even more, right? So this is the thing, like, it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. If you do actually end up hitting the power plants, oil's only going to go up even more because this is just going to escalate the conflict more and more and more. So the cure would actually be worse than the disease, if that makes sense. You know, you're giving a cure, you're trying to give a solution that is actually worse than the problem. So if you go and hit the power plants, then Iran is going to retaliate to Israel. They're going to retaliate to the GCC countries, most likely. They're going to start targeting, they already said themselves, they're going to try and target desalination plants. They're going to target, you know, technological aspects of the region as well, which will hurt US tech companies. So, you know, it's one of those that the solution is worse than the problem, which, you know, isn't ideal. Trump is all talk, says Zelvesa. Trump doesn't bluff. He is already weak, says Odagash. He said it, so he has to do it. Otherwise, he'll look weak. Yeah, I agree with that. If he doesn't stick to his word, it's gonna really be a sign of weakness on the US side. So what do you guys think about this? Are you worried about the effect on markets? Do you think Trump is going to stick to his word? And if he does, what are the implications for markets? Could we end up on Monday with a stock market crash? Could we end up with a stock market crash on Monday if Trump actually ends up following through? Or is it already priced in? Mr. J says, smash up the likes, everyone. Yeah, please do hit up the likes. We will go through some of the altcoin charts as well, but the big story as of right now is obviously this post from Trump and the fact that time is ticking, and it seems like Iran are not going to comply. It's not within their nature to do that. So we're going to have to see what happens. We're going to have to see whether Trump sticks to his word or whether he doesn't. And we've seen, historically speaking, with these types of things, quite often he does end up backing down. We witnessed that during the whole trade war. Trump doesn't think about the consequences, says Coin Operated. Iran has said they have reserves to last them a whole year, so Iran is not backing down. He won't stick to his word, says Jose. Yeah, so the majority of you guys seem to think that Trump will back down. He will kind of go with the taco approach here, which is maybe the good scenario for markets. If he sticks by his word, then markets could genuinely suffer. Let's see if there's something on Polymarket for this. Is there anything on Polymarket? Does anyone know if there's anything on Polymarket for this specific topic? Okay, so will the Strait of Hormuz traffic return to normal by the end of April? 33% chance. 33% chance that the Strait of Hormuz returns back to normal. Yeah, so seems highly unlikely that they're gonna stick to Trump's word, and I knew that anyway. But yeah, Kaspa, I do want to discuss Kaspa because, you know, it was getting very close to a breakout, and I'm sure many of you guys are gonna ask me about Kaspa. But it was getting very, very close to a breakout, and unfortunately, it looks like it's not gonna do it. It looks like it's gonna close back within the wedge, and essentially it was a fake out. It was a fake breakout. It was just a wick, and we have the weekly close coming up shortly, and it seems like Kaspa will indeed close the week within its current range, unless Bitcoin gets a miraculous pump in the next few hours. Seems like Kaspa is destined to close within the range, and this will purely be seen as nothing more than a fake breakout. Now, it's progress, of course. Maybe next week we come back up and we get the legitimate breakout next week. But you've got to now assume that if it closes like this, that Kaspa will indeed come back down to the lows of this range again. And this has just been a grueling period of consolidation for Kaspa. And we know eventually it's going to get that breakout because the technology is superior to basically everything in crypto. We know it will get that breakout at some point, but it's just a test of patience at this point. You know, whenever Kaspa comes down to the lows of this range, I truly believe you should be buying it up. That should be the period to buy Kaspa. And don't buy the pumps, don't buy the green days, just buy the lows of this range. And that's exactly what I did. So I think my average on Kaspa is around 0.028. I'm not saying it will come back to that level exactly, but it looks to me like this is going to be a rejection. Unless we can miraculously, you know, start pumping in the next few hours, which is very possible. I mean, it looks like we're closing on the level, slightly below it, maybe on the level. I said that we need to get above 0.038 to show like a clear breakout rather than just closing on the level, because do you guys really count it as a breakout if you close on the resistance? Because I personally don't. It needs to be a considerable amount above it. So this is just one to have on your radar, guys. We still haven't got that clear, decisive breakout yet. We certainly had it on a wick. But the question is this now going to be seen as a rejection and then we just roll back over in the coming weeks? What do you guys think? What do we think for Kaspa? And Tao is holding up okay as well. Seeing a bit of red, but holding up all right. VIP's got into Tao right at the bottom. 145 was the buy alert, guys. $145. That is the price the VIP's got in on Tao. And we more than doubled our money. We made about 115% ROI just in a matter of a few weeks from buying in. And that buy alert wasn't, you know, just one of these DCA alerts that all these YouTubers do where they buy every single day. No, that was a heavy buy alert, and I was in stable coins for months and months and months prior to that. So I basically sat out of Tao for a good few months and then got back in right at the bottom. It wasn't a coincidence. We know what we're doing. I have an entire team around me as well of researchers and analysts in my group. And we're able to buy the bottoms consistently in these projects. So definitely join the VIP group if you're not already in there. There is a discount code at checkout which you can utilize. Use the code WW3 at checkout, World War 3 abbreviated. And you're going to save yourself, I believe, around 20 or 25% off the memberships. So definitely check that one out. So, will Taco be the case again with this 48-hour deadline on Iran? Is the question I propose to you guys. Please let me know what you think. But, yeah, the VIP remains extremely active. People asking me about the markets. So, yeah, definitely join. Otherwise, you're missing out. So, these are my top cryptos at the moment. You can see them on the screen right now. Bitcoin, number 1. Solana, number 2. Sui, number 3. Kaspa, number 4. The VIP blue chip is in at number 5. Then we have Tao, which we bought, like I mentioned, at $145. The best AI crypto out there. We have Sei, which I'm also going to discuss a little bit about because it is showing weakness. It's really the only coin in my portfolio that's looking quite weak at the moment. Then we have Aster, Plasma, and the 3 VIP low caps, which you can unlock by becoming a VIP member. You'll also unlock a whole host of other benefits as well. But I did want to talk a little bit about Sui because... sorry, Sei, not Sui. We can discuss Sui if people want, but I did want to discuss Sei because it has been showing a lot of weakness, and some of you guys have been asking me about it. And I want to make myself very, very clear about Sei. This is not a project to go heavy into. This is not a project which should be a huge percentage of your portfolio. This should be a very small percentage of your portfolio because it hasn't proven itself. I love the tech. I think it's a great project. It's got a lot of potential, but it consistently dumps. And the way it's looking right now, it looks like it's potentially losing major, major support here. Now, you might ask me, am I going to sell it then? I don't think I am. Even though it looks like it's losing the support here, I don't think there's any point in selling it here because if Bitcoin does end up having a nice rally this year at some point, Sei will bounce. There's no way that Sei just goes straight down if altcoins have a really good rally. I don't see that. But one thing I will say is I'm not really looking at buying more Sei at the moment. I've got a very small percentage of my portfolio in Sei, and I'm not looking to top it up until it proves to me that it has more potential. Because right now, it looks tremendously weak. It really does. Still bullish on it. I still think it can do something. But it's the only project in my portfolio right now that I have my doubts about. And I'm not selling it because I still believe in it. I just wouldn't be allocating any more to it, is really my opinion on Sei right now. But we've seen before, we've seen projects look like they're losing their support. We've seen potential breakdowns, and then all of a sudden, some news happens or the market bounces, and they get a massive, massive push to the upside. And when you just do some basic calculations on Sei, it is incredible the potential gains that you could make on this one. I mean, just to all-time highs, you're talking 1,910%. That's not even a new high. That's just to all-time highs. You're getting a 20x on your money. So there is potential there. Just right now, it's not looking great. It's really not looking great. So very low chance the Strait of Hormuz gets opened up. And it's just going to be fascinating to see whether Trump backs down or whether he sticks to his word. And if he does end up sticking to his word, I think the consequences are going to be dire. The consequences are going to be very bad. It will mark a major, escalation. Odagash says, Trump talks too much, and talking too much usually ends up in a disaster. He says, I live in Dubai, and that's scary, honestly. Yeah, I live in Dubai as well. I live in Dubai as well. Coin Operated says, Trump doesn't think about the consequences. Yeah, I already read that. Mr. Koshi says 175 people watching and only 56 likes. Smash the likes to support Archie. Yeah. Guys, we need more interaction. You know, a lot of you guys, you watch the stream, you maybe put it on your TV or your phone or your computer or whatever, and you just listen to the stream. That's fine. Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the silent listeners. But if we can get some likes, if we can get some comments, some questions, it makes for a better live stream. It really does. Oda says, respect to you for being strong enough to shift your opinion. I don't know if you're talking to me or someone else in the chat. What are my thoughts on River? Let's take a look at the chart for River. So chart-wise, it's looking good. Chart-wise, we're looking quite healthy, looking quite organic. Someone's saying that you can't donate on the stream. Is that true? Did YouTube, like, demonetize me or something? I'll have to check that out. But River on MEXC. Daily RSI is getting quite overheated here, but it has been higher. We did just break some potential resistance on this thing. You know, you had a bit of a cup and handle formation here. Cup, handle, and now you're getting the bounce. So structurally, this thing looks good. I've heard a few people talking about this in the VIP. I think people made some money on this in the Discord chat. 580 million market cap. Let's check the website. Okay, so it's in the stablecoin category, which is bullish. Stablecoins are certainly one of the narratives which is going nowhere, and it has that institutional backing as well, which is always a good thing. Let's check the actual backing for this project, see how well backed it was. So it only got $12 million in fundraising, which isn't anything crazy, but it was backed by Justin Sun and the Tron Foundation, which is pretty big backing. So this is certainly one which you can look at. I'm not too sure whether I'd be jumping in right now as it is pumping. You know, but it's certainly one to look at. It's certainly one to have on the radar. But yeah, I'm really just looking at Bitcoin here, thinking that it's going to have that move down to like the 66K region. It just makes sense that we would do that. And I want to get everyone's thoughts. Do you think we lose 66K? Let's ask the chat here. Will BTC lose 66K? Will Bitcoin lose that support that I've been talking about in the stream? Let me know what you think. Yes or no? I put a poll out in the chat. Are we going to lose that major support? I say major support. It's major support on the 4 hour, not like the weekly or anything like that. But on the shorter time frames, it is pretty big support because you got multiple points of confluence all pointing to that region there. You know, it could be a decent long entry as long as you've got a tight stop loss just below it. Could be a good potential long entry. You do need that tight stop loss. There is no donate or super chat option. Wow. Did I get demonetized or something? Let's check. Let's check. Can you discuss the breakdown of the S&P 500? Yes. Okay, so my channel got demonetized yesterday. Channel is no longer monetized due to an inactive AdSense association. All right, I'll have to take a look at that. Appreciate whoever it was who mentioned that. I don't think I've been banned or anything. It's just some inactive account or something. So I'll have to check that out after the stream, but I won't waste anyone's time here. Can I chart Sui? Yeah, I'll take a look at Sui. So Sui's still, for me, a top altcoin. I know it didn't necessarily go to the heights that some of us were expecting it would go to, but I believe it will do that and beyond in the next bull run. So, you know, I still have a high amount of conviction in Sui. It is the best rival, I would say, to Solana in the crypto space. But from a charting perspective, it has lost a lot of the support levels. We do have a trend line there. I mean, there's only 3 hits. Maybe 4. 3 or 4 hits on that trend line. So there's a bit of a trend line going on. But there's not an awful lot to go off. I mean, we can take a look at some macro fibs. We've lost all of them now. So we've even lost the 886. So Sui's basically given back all the gains pretty much. The crazy thing is, it still didn't even go to the level which I bought it at. So in 2024, was it? 2024, I bought Sui at 76 cents. I then rode it up to $4 or $5, and I was taking heavy profits in this region, telling my VIPs, this is the time to take some profits. A lot of people weren't listening to me, right? I was up, what was it, 7x on Sui? I mean, let's work it out. 76 cents. So on that particular buy, I was up 7.6x on my money. And I was taking profits. I think I had an average at $1, so 5.6x, 5.5x. I was taking profits, and people were saying, no, don't take profits until $10. Obviously, they learned their lesson now, but you know, if you're up 5, 6, 7x on a high quality project, just take profits. I know it can go higher, but just take some profits. It's always the sensible thing to do. You never lose money taking profits. You always make money taking profits. But you've got that support trend line on Sui. The RSIs look pretty oversold, though they could come down still a little bit more. If it loses this support trend line, then you've got to assume that it's coming down to 46 to 57 cents. That would be maybe the next level. We can take a volume profile maybe from here to here. Okay, so we did hit the value area low as support. So yeah, it's safe to say if it loses like 78 cents, if it loses 78 cents, then it's probably coming down to the 40s or 50s. Sui's not shown too much strength compared to some of the other alts. Now, what price did we buy Sui at? We bought Sui at 85 cents just recently. So we're still up a little bit on our buy alert, but if Sui ends up going lower, I will just buy more. If it does end up coming down to this range here, then I will simply just buy more. And, you know, it's possible that some of these alts do come back down to their 2024 lows. I mean, that would be the reasonable thing to assume, right? In a bear market, that an altcoin would come back down to the 2024 lows. Doesn't seem asinine to me that altcoins like Sui could come back down to the 2024 lows. Say came way below the 2024 lows. What would Bitcoin's 2024 low be? Was it 47K? 48K? Yeah, 49K. So Bitcoin's 2024 low on that Japanese yen carry trade crash that we had. Bitcoin's low is just below 50K. So that's another reason why I don't believe we'll lose 50K, because it is a major support level. It is a really, really big support level. I just think something major has to happen in order for Bitcoin to lose 50K. So, yeah, I'm pretty consistent, guys. I think the bottom is either in or close to being in. I've been spewing that same statement now for some time. I could end up be proven wrong. And I want to be wrong, to be honest with you. Because it means I can buy cheaper Bitcoin and cheaper altcoins. But just because I want something to happen doesn't mean it will happen, right? Okay, so someone asked me to discuss the breakdown on the S&P 500 and how that will affect the crypto market. So the S&P 500 does look like it's having a bit of a rounding top. Does seem like it's rolling over a bit here. And it's certainly possible that on Monday it could have a pretty weak open, especially considering the news coming out regarding, the war in the Middle East. What I usually see the S&P 500 do is it flips previous highs into support, and it's a very healthy thing that it does, and it typically does this consistently during a bull market. So if this is still a bull market for the S&P 500, one could assume that it will come down to around 6,000 or so, 6,000, 6,100, which as of right now would be a further 5 or 6% correction on the S&P. So that's the kind of healthy case scenario. Yeah, I give you guys the bull case, the base case, the bear case. The healthy case would be the S&P 500 coming down, flipping the previous high, the February 2025 high, into support, and then getting a bounce to new highs. That would be the great healthy scenario for the S&P. That's exactly what it did during the April tariff crash. It came down and it flipped the 2021 all-time high into support. And it's done this consistently. You can see here during the 2022 bear market, it came down and it flipped the 2020 high almost into support. So this is generally what the S&P 500 does. You can see during the COVID crash, it came down and it flipped the 2015 high into support. So this is usually what the S&P does. It's kind of like this stairway to heaven style, and it usually respects previous highs as support zones. Now, if this time around it fails to find support at this high, there is a chance the S&P 500 is actually entering into some sort of more prolonged bear market rather than just a healthy corrective move. There is a chance that if it loses that support region, that it could end up going into more of a multi-year bear market. But honestly, I think it will most likely hold that support. That's what I believe will happen. That's my base case. My base case is that it will come down, it will hold that support, and then end up going to a new high. And that new high will probably be the final high of the multi-year equity bull market that we've been in the US. I think AI still has a little bit more to go. When I look at what they're doing with AI agents, it makes me think there's still some more progress. I don't think it's a bubble. If you look at the earnings from some of the big tech companies, it's not indicative of a bubble. Maybe the likes of Palantir is, but if you look at Microsoft, if you look at Google, Amazon, Nvidia, they all have relatively low PE ratios, nothing insane. So there's no signs to me that we're in a bubble. If anything, it's a sign of a healthy corrective move on the S&P 500 due to some geopolitical uncertainties and some worries about the Fed. And once it's over and done with, I expect us to start moving back up later on in the year. Midterm years are typically bearish, especially in the first part of the year. And then you do pick up usually into Q3 or Q4. So that's what I'm expecting. Whether it happens or not, obviously time will tell. But those are my thoughts on the S&P. What do I think Trump will do? I think he'll back down again. I think he'll back down, but it's hard for him to do that without looking like a weak leader in the war, right? Like if you say something, if you say you've got 48 hours to do this, and then, or you say you've got 48 hours to do this or else, and then the 48 hours pass and you don't do anything, it looks weak. It does not portray strength. Like if you've got a kid, let's say you've got a little kid, and you say to the kid, you know, you've got an hour to make your bed. Otherwise, we're not going to go to the cinema, whatever it is, right? Otherwise, this will happen, right? You say to your kid, you've got an hour to do your chores, you've got an hour to clean your room, make your bed, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, you're not getting the... you're not getting the toy you want or whatever, right? And then that time goes past, the kid doesn't clean its room, doesn't clean the room, it doesn't make its bed, etc., etc. And then you do nothing as a parent, then you look weak as a parent, and then they take advantage of you, right? And they no longer trust that you stick to your word. It's the same in this conflict. So that's the analogy I would give. I always like to make analogies. You know, if your parent tells you you've got an hour to do your room, otherwise you're not getting this toy, and then the hour goes past, and they don't punish you or whatever, then obviously they're not sticking to their word. And it comes across as weak on the parent's behalf. If they still buy the kid the toy, then it looks weak, right? Because they're giving in to the child. And if Trump doesn't end up hitting the targets that he said he'll hit, then Trump's basically giving in to Iran, and Trump looks weak. Okay, so Ollie joined the VIP recently, and you'd highly recommend it. Wow, I appreciate that. My question is, if you like Epic Chain as a project. So I think it's a decent project, but it's higher risk, and I don't know if now is the right time to be going heavy into the higher risk projects. Oh no, is YouTube demonetization going to bankrupt Archie? Man, YouTube literally pays me absolutely nothing. Let me actually tell you what I earn on YouTube. Let me see if I can find out here. It's crazy how low it is. People think, oh, YouTubers make loads of money. So YouTube paid in the last 28 days, so last month basically, $614. That's how much YouTube pays. It pays nothing. If people think I'm making money from YouTube, you better think twice. Now, I do make money from my group. I do make some side money from my group, which I use really to just reinvest into the market. But yeah, the majority of money I make on a year-to-year basis is through my investing. By far the biggest amount is the gains through investing. Is virtuals on my radar? It's on my radar, but it's not on the level of Tao. What would the best entry into Sui be? So you could set some limit orders down at the 2024 lows. I think that's your best chance of getting it low, but it's not a guarantee that it goes there, because there is some support here that does stem back to 2023. Now, there is only a few hits, but the duration of this trend line is pretty respectable. So there's a chance Sui is bottomed. If it hasn't bottomed, then it's going to come down to like the 2024 lows, most likely. Not gonna lie, I feel like we could go lower. 50s makes me think buying in here is too tasty. Too hasty? Too quick, you mean? Yeah, too quick. Man, I can't even see this. Let me see if I can zoom out. So I get the gist of what you're saying, right? You're saying that you feel like buying at 59, 60, 61, 62, you think buying at that region was maybe a bit premature, I assume is what you're trying to say. And I get what you're saying, but the thing is, you don't have to buy the exact bottom. If you're holding for years, it's about buying the bottoming range. You don't have to buy the exact day of the bottom. As long as you're buying the bottoming range, like I said earlier, what's the difference between 17K and 13K Bitcoin? So many people weren't going to put a penny into Bitcoin until it hit 13K in 2022. And 13K didn't get hit. So then all those people who were waiting for 13K, they were then chasing the bag. So sometimes you've just got to humble yourself and say, look, prices here are cheap. Could they go a bit lower? Yes, but I'm going to buy here anyway. And that's exactly the strategy that I personally am deploying. So we have 195 people watching the stream. Go a bit lower. Let's see what the poll is saying. So 80% of you guys think we will lose 66K. Interesting. So is anyone shorting the market right now? Is anyone in any shorts? Is Say done? It's not looking good. Yeah, it's not looking good. Don't over allocate into Say. Just get a small bag. It's not even necessary. You don't need Say, but I just think there's great potential because it's so low. But everything's looking rough, you know? We just happened to buy a few projects which were the best performers in the market. Tao, Asta. We just happened to buy the best ones. But the vast majority of coins look like Say. Can we take a look at Ondo? Ondo looks like Say as well. It's just giving back all the gains. So, let's see. See if there's any news about the war. See if Trump said anything. So there's fighter jets heading over to Iran. So nothing much seems like it's come out recently. I had a phone call interview with President Trump today about Iran. I asked him about the Strait of Hormuz and his ultimatum. Trump said, "You'll find out what's going to happen. You're going to find out soon." Okay, so maybe he will stick to his word, right? Maybe he will. Time's going to tell. But if he does end up sticking to his word, it will be pretty bad for the markets on Monday. Expect fireworks on Monday if Trump ends up sticking to his word. I honestly don't know what to believe. I'd be lying if I told you I knew what was going to happen with this. I really don't know. I really, really don't know what he's going to do. All I know is if he follows through, then the consequences will be very bad for the market and for oil. Render or virtuals? They're both equal, I would say. If you're asking me any altcoin compared to Tao in the AI sector, I'm going to go Tao. But render and virtuals, I think they're both kind of on the same level. They're both good alternatives for those who don't want to buy Tao for whatever reason. But I don't know why you wouldn't buy Tao. But maybe for those who want a secondary play in the AI sector, I think render and virtuals would be the two ones to consider. What do you consider the bottoming range? 60 to 50k, or 60 to 55k, or 60 to 53k. Just the 50s, pretty much. I think 50s is the bottoming range. So I'll kind of just illustrate this very simply for everyone. So base case bottom. Let's do this one in green. So base case bottom is in green there. I think possible, but unlikely. I'm going to go in orange. We're going to do this one. So possible, but unlikely is the orange one. And then for me, this is extremely unlikely. Would be anything down to 25k. Anything there for me, I'm going to go red, and we're going to say this is extremely unlikely. Extremely unlikely. So those are my bottom scenarios, right? Most likely in green. Most likely that'll be the bottom. Possible, but unlikely. And then extremely unlikely is in the red. So those are my scenarios. Do you think that's fair? Let me know. Do you guys think that that is a fair estimate? Do you think I'm too optimistic? Too pessimistic? Like, what do you think? I've said many times, I don't see us going below 50k unless it's a Black Swan event. And I don't see us going below the 786 unless crypto and Bitcoin is like fundamentally dead. The only way Bitcoin goes below 39k, which is the 786, is if literally crypto is dead. If like Bitcoin gets hacked, quantum computing takes over, or Satoshi comes out and reveals who he is and sells his Bitcoin, like that's your freaking doomsday end of the world scenario. Highly unlikely, and that's why I've put it in red, because I see that as extremely unlikely. Extremely unlikely. So is that fair? So let's take a quick look at Ondo. Another altcoin which, again, just looks very weak. Not anything against Ondo. It's just the same with most alts. And this is one which has the institutional backing, has the narrative behind it, but just seems to keep on dumping. It lost the 10-10 wick, had a brutal 10-10 crash. The inception price of Ondo is all the way down at 8 cents. That would be a further 66% correction. I don't necessarily think it will go that low, but it's possible that it could come down to like the base of the candle there. 16 cents. What would that be from here? That'd be another 30% dip. I mean, it's hard to even find a bottom on something like this that's just a falling knife. It's really difficult to time a bottom, and for that reason, you should just kind of DCA into it alongside Bitcoin. So if you're very, very bullish on Ondo, let's just say you like the project, what you should do is just stagger your buys on the way down in line with where Bitcoin is. So if you think Bitcoin's approaching a major level of support, then go quite heavy into Ondo, because when something's a falling knife, it just moves in tandem with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin has a massive pump, it will pump. If Bitcoin keeps going down, the altcoin will keep going down. There's no point in even really doing isolated TA on an altcoin that's a falling knife. It's not even worth it. Just buy it when you think Bitcoin's bottomed or getting close to the bottom. Do I think it's a good time to buy ETFs? What do you mean, like the S&P, NASDAQ? Personally, no. It's not gone low enough for me to think about that. If it comes down to the level I said earlier, I would consider it, but I'm not really an ETF investor. You know, I'm a young guy, and there'll be a time in my life where I go low risk, but it's not right now. People constantly tell me, look, you're 21, you got a few million, maybe you should, you know, go all in on the S&P 500 and just sit back and relax. But that's just not how I am. That's not what got me to where I am at a young age. That kind of conservative style investing. I think investing in index funds is fine for people who want to retire in their 60s or 70s with a few million. But if you want to make a few million when you're very young, or not even if you're young, let's just say you're 40 right now, and you want to make a few million in the next 5 years, index funds aren't going to be the way unless you've already got millions, right? So, nothing against index fund investors. I know when I say this, it triggers people. People like their S&P 500. They like the low-risk investing. But it's just not for me. You know, maybe in a good few years, when my risk appetite changes, then I'll go towards them. But like I said, it's not what made me a millionaire at 18, investing in index funds. So probably not going to do it anytime soon. I'd consider it if it crashed hard. Like, really, I should have bought some down at the April lows, looking back. That was a decent time to get a long-term position in the S&P. You know, maybe like the Qs, I think, is a decent index fund to buy if you're bullish on tech. If the Qs retraces to like 540, I'd consider that maybe. But it's just not for me. So yeah, in summary, guys, before we wrap up the stream, Bitcoin has a lot of confluence down at that 66,000 region. That's the level which needs to hold if Bitcoin wants to maintain its somewhat bullish structure. If it ends up losing that level, most likely Bitcoin will go to a new low, and most likely we will get a bullish divergence form, and we will then see more of a sustained rally to the upside. Some people have been asking me, what if we don't get the bullish divergence? Well, if we don't get the bullish divergence, then probably that is not the low. We will end up going even lower than that. So hopefully we do get the bullish divergence if we make that move lower. And if we do, then there's a solid chance that will mark the cycle bottom and it will be up from there. And I wouldn't bog yourself down too much about buying the exact bottom. Like I've said, buy the bottoming range, stack the range lows, and sell the range highs. 59 could be the bottom. 55 could be the bottom. Who freaking cares? Buy low, sell high, stick to the strategy, and you'll make money. That's exactly what I'm doing in the VIP group. I'm going to continue doing it going forward. There's a bunch of altcoins on my radar right now, and if we have that further retracement, I will be buying them, and I'll be telling the VIPs the moment I do so. Join the group. It's linked down below. You'll access the Discord. You'll access the daily voice chats, VIP content, and a community full of like-minded, intelligent individuals. So don't be a lone wolf. Join a community, and you'll see that your chances of winning in the market drastically increase. Appreciate everyone watching. Smash the likes up, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.